everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here again today at Re-Written Vintage Homestead. And this week is going to be a busy week on the homestead. I'm still preserving tomatoes. We have sports events. I have to work. So I went to my Amish Country cookbook that I got, and it's from Dutchman Essinghouse in Indiana, to see if there were some recipes in there that I could maybe make ahead. And I found one for barbecue meatballs, where you make the meatballs ahead of time, and then when you're ready to cook, you just bake them. So I thought we would give this a try, and it really, really sounds delicious. So let's give it a go. Now, I want you all to be prepared to get down and dirty with this recipe, because when you make meatloaf or meatballs, you have to use your hands to get it mixed up well. So we're going to start off with about 3 pounds of ground beef. And to that, we're going to add 1 cup of oatmeal. The oatmeal is a binder. Now, in a lot of meatloaf recipes, you're going to use the panko breadcrumbs. But they're going to use the oatmeal here. And then we're going to add 2 eggs. Make sure you keep your eggshells, wash them out good, dry them out, and use them as fertilizer. Then we're going to add a ½ teaspoon of minced garlic. There we go. And a ½ teaspoon of pepper. Now, this is the part that threw me. We're going to add 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. In my recipe that I usually make meatloaf from, I use a ½ cup of milk. I've never used evaporated milk, so I'm curious as to how this is going to turn out. Then we're going to add 1 cup of cracker crumbs. Let me move this here. So that actually comes to about a sleeve of crackers. And I'm just going to roll it here with my rolling pin. You can also use a glass if you don't have a rolling pin. And we're just going to break it up here. There we go. I already have some here. That should give me a cup, maybe a little more. But nope, just right at it. Okay, so let's add that in. A ½ cup of chopped onions, more or less, whatever you guys like. 2 teaspoons of salt. That would be more or less based on your taste and preferences also. And here's an unusual twist too, I thought. Chili powder. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Looks like I need to go to the store and get some more. Let me know if you guys have used chili powder in your meatloaf or your meatballs before. So this is the base of our meatballs. So take off your rings, ladies, and your jewelry, and get to mushing. Is take your hands and start mushing it together. And the recipe does say that it's going to be runny. It's going to be mushy. I'm just really curious about this evaporated milk. Now, this recipe came from, his name was Walter Lehman. Well, there's an Amish name, right? And he works for Essinghouse Foods. So he must know what he's talking about. So the next thing old Walter tells us to do is to shape these into meatballs about the size of a walnut. Now, he doesn't tell us if the walnut has the husk on or the husk off. So I just use a tablespoon here and I kind of, filled it up fairly good because that looks like a normal meatball size to me. And we're putting those on a lined baking sheet. You can line it with wax paper. You can line it with tin foil like I did, parchment paper, whatever you have. And we're going to continue making these meatballs. And then when we're done, we're going to store them in the freezer. Once they're frozen, we're going to put them in a freezer bag. And we're going to keep them in the freezer until we're ready to use them tomorrow. And I'll tell you right now what I think I'm going to like about this recipe is it made 25 large meatballs. And so you put those in the freezer. Once they're frozen, you put them in a freezer bag till you're ready to use them. You can put several freezer bags and just pull what you need of these meatballs. You have company coming, use them all. It's just you and your husband, just use half. So that's what I'm going to do. And I think they're going to be delicious. But I'll join you tomorrow and we're going to make the sauce for it and we're going to bake them because that's what we're having for dinner tomorrow. Something I thought I would add at the end of this video, we've ordered all of our sheds from an Amish company here locally in the Midwest. And the last time we went to get my new she shed, they have a huge, huge pole barn. And inside the pole barn, they make everything from chicken coops to sheds to garages, everything. And there's all of these Amish men running around barefoot and their little dog, Lily, and she runs around in there too. And they make these sheds and garages. And it was just amazing for me to watch. They don't have electricity. They use generators for their air guns and everything that they use. But I thought you might think it was interesting to see how they deliver these. These sheds are on skids, and they send one person over and a big piece of machinery, and that one person can move that shed and put it where you want. And I thought you might enjoy that. So I'll put that at the end of this video, you guys, and I'll join you tomorrow. We'll make the sauce, we'll bake them, and we'll have some dinner. Okay, friends, so it's day 2 of our Amish Country Cookbook from Das Dutchman Essen House, and we are making the barbecued meatballs. And so I froze the meatballs yesterday. They're in here, and I'm actually only going to make half of them. It's just my husband and I, so there's no need in making all of them. So I've got them in a 13 by 9 inch glass baking pan. And you know what? I'll save the other ones for later. And we'll have those one night this winter and it'll be delicious. And so now we're ready to make the sauce. So I'm going to bring you on down. So I'm actually cutting this sauce recipe in half since I'm only using half of the meatballs. It made a lot. So I'm going to take 1 cup of ketchup. If you're making the full recipe, you want 2 cups. I'm going to use half of a cup of brown sugar. If you're making the full recipe, you want a cup of brown sugar. I'm going to use 1/4 of a cup of diced onion. And really, that's to taste. So just whatever you want there, guys. If you want more, add more. If you want less, add less. And 1/2 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. And so I'm going to cut that in half as well. But on the recipe that I put on the side of my screen here, I will put the full amount. So if you're making all of the meatballs, okay? So I'm adding the garlic powder. Now I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it over the burner and I'm going to cook it until all of that brown sugar has melted and all of the flavors have incorporated. Look at this beautiful sauce. Now I ended up adding a teaspoon of liquid smoke to this sauce to give it more of a barbecue taste and to cut some of that brown sugar taste. And boy, that made the difference, I tell you. So now I'm just going to spoon some of this sauce over all of these delicious meatballs. The meatballs are still frozen. I've got my oven preheating to 350. Oh my goodness, these look good. I hope old Walter knew what he was talking about, and this ends up being a family favorite. Like I said, I cut mine in half, but I will give you guys the full recipe on the side of the screen there, so you can give it a go. Now I'm going to put these in a 350 oven, and I'm going to bake them about an hour and check them. If they need a little longer, I'll do that a little at a time. But let's do them for an hour and see how they go. So I am not exaggerating when I tell you that these meatballs are fantastic. They are so good. Now, I myself don't like meatloaf or meatballs with like a ketchup glaze that you get all the time. I never did like that as a kid, but this has that sweet barbecue flavor. It is delicious. We're having corn on the cob, and I made some cornbread muffins with some corn cob jelly. So we are eating high on the hog tonight, you guys. And make these meatballs. They are delicious. They're easy. You can put them in the freezer. You can have them when you have company, and all you have to do is make the sauce. So easy. Thanks for joining me, you guys. I hope you have a great week and you come back to see me.